welcome to the Gamers Inn. Come on in, pull up a chair next to the fire. It looks like you've had a long journey. I'm your host, Jocelyn, and joining me as always is my co-host, Ryan. Hello, Ryan.
Hello. How are you?
I'm not too bad. How are you doing?
Pretty good. It's Wednesday. You know, it's funny. I was just thinking like this week is going by so slowly, but then I realized
thought you were going to say quickly, and I was like, I know. So we're clearly having two totally different experiences with this week.
We definitely are, because yesterday was Tuesday. Then today I thought it was Friday. But then it turns out it was only Wednesday, because that's how time works.
Wow. That's a big jump.
I know.
I don't think I've ever gone to sleep on a Tuesday and then woken up the next day thinking it was Friday. Wow.
I don't know what it is. Like, I've been getting up. So I've gone back to work. Mm-hmm. Waking up at either 5:30 or 6, depending on whether or not I'm doing a crazy thing where I'm running in the morning. I've never been a person who wakes up early to like exercise, but having 2 kids and wanting to play video games in the evening, we'll get back to that, why that's crazy. But I'd figure I'll just play video games and run at the same time in the morning. But then you do that for like every other day for a good week, and then you realize like, oh my God, you forget what day it is. And I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it feels like the week is going by slowly. But I'm glad it's not Friday, because then I would miss Gamers Inn, because we didn't record this week. So yeah.
Yep. So we have a couple of announcements before we get into the show proper. And Ryan also has some more streaming adventures. I'm calling it streaming week number 3. But so we have.
I thought you were going to give it a name.
Well,
streaming week number 3 is just, it sounds so formal. I mean.
Yeah, I couldn't think of anything fun on the fly. Okay.
Go ahead. Continue.
We do have a couple of announcements and things that we're kind of working on, some stuff to tell you guys. So first and foremost, we are actually going to be leaving A-Move TV. So we've had a really good run. You guys have been there for us for 5 years now. So we wanted to say thank you so much to the A-Move community. It was basically just the best idea for us going forward. And we're going to talk about our ideas for Gamers Inn, the brand as a whole, going forward. But basically, leaving A-Move was the best idea for us. And we're also moving the show to 8 p.m. on Thursdays, which conflicted with another show on the A-Move network. So there's no drama, no hard feelings, no nothing. It's just it works best for all of us. Obviously, I'm still on Embrace the Spoilers and Angry Chicken and everything else on A-Move. Only Gamers Inn is leaving. And we're doing that because we're going to start putting out a series of podcasts called Gamers Inn Presents. So these are going to be things that are kind of like trial shows or seasonal shows or one-off shows, like things that we're just super interested in, and either Ryan or I want to do that kind of fall in the general video gaming outside of Blizzard sort of umbrella. And so we thought that it was better if we just kind of took Gamers Inn and made it its own thing again. Because the whole Gamers Inn Presents idea and us putting out more shows under that banner didn't really work in the existing structure of the A-Move network. So we are going off on our own again. And so that being said, we are moving to Thursdays at 8 p.m. and we are going to be recording on twitch.tv/thegamersinn. So if you guys haven't gone to follow the channel, we have not used twitch.tv/thegamersinn in a very, very long time. So I wouldn't be surprised if most of you don't even know it exists, but it does. And that's where we're going to be recording at 8 p.m. on Thursday. So make sure you guys don't miss that. Ryan, did you want to talk about the first Gamers Inn Presents project?
Yeah, so this came up pretty quickly over the last couple of weeks, and I've been teasing it here and there, both on the show and whatnot. Anyways, a game I've been playing a lot of over the last year that I've tried to talk about as much as possible on the show, but unfortunately, it's just too niche. There's not enough people. Only half the people on the show are playing it, so I can't talk about it every week. Therefore, I thought it'd be a good idea to grab someone from our lovely Discord and start a spin-off podcast called Summoner's Call, a Fire Emblem Heroes podcast. I don't know. We don't have any music or fanfare yet, so like
I was like, should I have had like a
just imagine
drum roll or something?
Things are coming together very quickly, but if you're a Fire Emblem Heroes fan, you know that they are having their first anniversary celebration on Friday. So my goal is to have everything in place for Friday. I'm recording tomorrow with my co-host Eddie or Drelfear from the Discord. So it kind of was born under the idea of the fact that the Gamers in Discord sort of spawned this channel, and it's pretty notorious for being, we were taking over the general chat, which is the only chat we had with Fire Emblem talk. Then we created a Fire Emblem channel, and then the people who are really playing that game are in there talking every day. And there's a, there's a good grouping of us, and I'm hoping that we can come together with this spin-off Gamers in Presents podcast and just, have a great time. So a Fire Emblem Heroes podcast coming soon to the Gamers In, and this will be a separate feed. So you'll have your main feed of the Gamers In, and you'll have a second feed for our Gamers In, for each Gamers In Presents project as they come up. So Summoner's Call will have its own feed launching on Friday. So pay attention to our Twitter, and you'll see those announcements. But still in the works, almost there. So close. So close.
So we're going to take a second here because apparently chat room is saying they can't hear us. So just give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to try to figure out what's actually going on. So pause. Gamers In for now.
Sure.
Just give me 1 second. Sorry, Ryan. I tried, and I also opened OBS over your face. So so there's going to be whatever, the video is going to be a little messed up too, but
one guy said, okay, Gonra is saying he can hear us.
Damn it.
Sledgemeister, check your volume.
Oh man, we've had so many like tech type issues and shit from these stupid Windows updates.
I can hear also.
I just assumed that something was messed up with OBS.
It's fine. It's not Sagmeister's fault.
It's fine.
We'll continue. So I was finished talking about Fire Emblem Heroes podcast. Yes. Back to you, right. over the news desk.
So the second show that we're thinking of launching under this Gamers In Presents banner is a show that I'm putting together with Civ. If you guys have been watching basically any of the WoW raiding I've been doing, he's my co-raid leader. He is also my co-captain on our ship over the last week while we've been playing the Sea of Thieves closed beta. We are actually going to do a probably short run show about Sea of Thieves. We had a ton of fun playing it. We're really, really excited about the game. So we're going to put together a series of shows to kind of almost like an intro to Sea of Thieves, kind of from now until the game launches. And if there's a lot of interest, if there seems to be a lot of news, we might keep it going. But this is what I mean about Gamers In Presents being kind of like a seasonal test ground, one-off type thing. We're going to do a podcast as well. As of right now, all of the Gamers In Presents projects are audio only, so you guys can hear them either on the website or we'll be posting them to iTunes. So you can get them, there'll be RSS feeds, so you can kind of listen to them on your podcast catcher of choice. But they'll be audio only. But again, we will be streaming to twitch.tv/thegamersin. If any of those ever end up actually being live streamed video podcasts as well. So make sure you go over and check that out and follow that channel. I think that's pretty much it for announcements off the top of the show. Ryan, is there anything else I'm missing?
That's the big stuff. And obviously, pay attention over the next couple weeks as these things start to take form. From what I've seen, things do move quickly when you're passionate about a project. So Sea of Thieves, Fire Emblem Heroes, I think you can expect those sooner rather than later. But yeah, pay attention to our Twitter feeds and you'll get more info on those.
All right. So what we're playing this week is kind of going a little bit off the rails ish again. Ryan, you've been having many adventures in the land of streaming. So
that's a better title.
You have some more more questions?
Okay, so I want to preface, and it should come as no shock that I'm a beginner at this stuff. So everything I say should be taken with Ryan's a beginner. Okay, so over the weekend, Jocelyn and I had a chance to sit down, and she shared her screen. She walked me through StreamElements, and I did ask her before the show. She is a StreamElements. What is the word? Promoter. Thank you. And it is essentially her your task to kind of show off the system to prospective streamers and kind of point them in the right direction for settings and all that stuff. And
as well as onboarding people who've already chosen the service. That's kind of more of my job, but yes.
Onboarding.
Yeah. So it's like if somebody like signs up for the service, but they haven't necessarily implemented all of the features and they need help, then I give them a hand.
Okay, cool. So yeah,
same difference.
We walked through it, and I feel like that was a good way to sort of understand all the beginner key components. And when we say beginner, one question I had then was like, oh, if I'm just starting out, can I just have like the game stream up and just maybe just pay attention to the chat for alerts and stuff? It's like, no, you should implement all the tools. I mean, you said it better than I'm probably going to say it, but correct me afterwards. But it was like the conversation went basically implementing all the features that most Twitch users are expecting is the best way to go forward, even if it's your first stream, because that's what people are expecting to see, like a camera and alerts, donations, stuff like that, like the ability to donate.
So yeah, basically my advice was if you think of like Twitch like a restaurant. And so if I am hungry and I want a steak and I go to the keg and I get a steak, I am used to that level of service. And then if I go to the keg the next time and I sit down and I order a steak and I get a plate full of ground beef, I'll be like, WTF, where is my steak? So basically, people who frequent a service provider, like a restaurant, have a certain level of service they expect, a certain product to be brought to them when they order. So if you are a streamer on Twitch, even if you're a first time streamer, I think the best way to go is basically like you're putting your best foot forward to any potential people who are going to come into your channel and have already experienced things on Twitch. So if you have somebody who watches a lot of really big streamers and they do things like they have alerts and donations and chatbots and overlays and all these other things, if they then come to your channel and you don't have those things, they're going to be like, oh, this is the ground beef as opposed to the steak. I'm going to go back and get me some steak, and they're going to leave your channel. So the way to kind of, I think, attract new viewers and actually grow your channel is to kind of build your channel in kind of emulating the way that big successful streamers do. There is a lot of debate about specifically like monetizing things. So like bits and donations and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, like, if you set it all up when you start, you build up your own personal brand and you start streaming, then you don't have to do it down the road. And it's like, it's all just there. It is what it is. Your stream is your stream and you're ready to go. So I very, very strongly believe that you should kind of like put your best foot forward, do all that stuff up at the beginning, make yourself look as professional and polished as you possibly can, and then start streaming. Right. Because yeah, like I said, it's so much easier to attract new people when you're already providing all of the services, all of the polish and all of the flair that people are used to from other streams on Twitch. So that was my kind of general advice.
Yeah, that was
even
well
though it
put.
Seems like a lot and it seems like it's overwhelming. I think that that's the best way to go about it.
And that brings me to my next point in setting. So I spent about a couple hours on Monday night setting up the overlay for my first stream. My first official stab at it was going to be Life is Strange Before the Storm. We'll get to that a little later. There were some issues there. However, I set up an overlay. I was like, okay, I'm going to go something generic. So I picked like one of the blue ones that I'm sure a lot of people use. It actually tells you how many people use it.
It does tell you how many other streamers are using that Well, it tells you how many other streamers have copied that theme into their overlays. Right. So they may or may not actually be actively using it on Twitch, but it gives you an idea of the popularity.
Yeah, and there was like maybe 500 people, but it was a color. It looked good. It wasn't animated. It was just basic. So I fiddled with that. I got rid of the Prime stuff, or not the Prime stuff, but the subscriber stuff, because not got rid of, but hid it, moved some stuff around, just because it not being mean or anything to myself, but it'll probably be empty for quite a while because I'm just starting out.
Yep.
And yeah, so I did that. It took a couple hours just to kind of get everything. The alerts are pretty much set up. They're ready to go, and you can kind of test them as you're playing, which was nice. So right in the StreamElements overlay builder, there's a little test button, which was nice, and got that all set up and ready to go. And it was easy, which brought me to my next point was like, okay, the Ryan Murphy CA brand, I've already kind of worked on some elements with the website and banners, and you can actually see some of that on Twitch. And I thought, well, I wonder how hard it would be to like design like a 1080p overlay in Photoshop and then kind of splice it apart and then import it into StreamElements. So I'm thinking that's where I'm going to go next is once I've got a few more under my belt with this blue theme, I can kind of, use that and then replace the elements with sort of custom stuff. Have you ever done like a custom StreamElements sort of setup from like a Photoshop file to building it?
I haven't, but it's actually fairly simple. All you have to do is instead of selecting an existing theme from the theme library, all you have to do is go in and say create a new overlay, and you can just create a blank one. It gives you that blank green screen, and then you can add in any of the different widgets that you want, or if you have like a Photoshop overlay like we use for Gamers In right now, that's basically just a static Photoshop image. So I Photoshop the type in it every week, and I just use it, throw it into OBS and use it. I'm actually going to do the custom overlay going forward using StreamElements. And all you have to do is there's an upload images section. And so you just upload your image in your overlay editor and then you're done. So if you wanted to have a whole bunch of different elements, you would have to upload them, like a whole bunch of different elements that were also able to be moved. You'd have to upload them all separately. If you figure out your overlay in Photoshop and then export it as one PNG, then you just upload once. But it depends how much flexibility you want to have once you're actually on the platform.
Okay. Well, I think I'll probably look into that in a couple of weeks once I've done a few more. But so last sort of stream update stuff. So I played Life is Strange, and we'll talk about the actual game in a bit. But in terms of playing that game on Twitch, I feel like that was a bad choice because not only is that game, it's older. I think the first episode came out late summer. So you're already losing probably a good chunk of viewers, especially ones that are paying attention to the Gamers In because we've already talked about it and it's been out for a while, but also made worse by the fact that there's a webcam, because I took your advice to kind of set everything up. So there was a webcam. Adventure games are really hard to appear excited about.
Yes.
And I feel like that's like kind of half of doing Twitch streams is you kind of have to be alive.
Well, it is good to be engaging. It is good to be excited about the thing that you're playing because you want to share the like, oh my God, like happy or sad or scared moments with your viewers. That's the whole reason why you're streaming to Twitch is you want to be engaging. So the thing is with adventure games sometimes, or just general exploration story-based games, sometimes they are lacking in that wow factor, for lack of a better term. So you kind of want either super high-end competitive gameplay or something that is super engaging for your audience. And if you're playing an adventure game with your audience and getting feedback from the chat room, that can be good because like if there's choices to be made or, dialogue choices to do, then it's good to get input from your chat room. But yeah, Life is Strange in particular, I found, because I streamed, I think 3 or 4 of the 5 original episodes of original Life is Strange. And yeah, it's difficult to kind of stream that and be happy and excited and engaged because the adventure games are slower paced. But you can do like things like chill streams and just make sure that you say like, oh yeah, I'm just having a chill stream today. Like come hang out with me while I play Life is Strange, because adventure games are also very good for kind of like pausing the action, right? So you can do the same sort of thing that I do with my Get Nailed stream where it gives viewers like I can pause painting my nails whenever I want. And you can kind of have questions and interaction from the chat room in a way that you can't when you're playing something like, say, Heroes of the Storm or Overwatch that's like super fast paced and competitive and everything else. So there's kind of like trade-offs and there's a lot of different ways you can engage your audience. But I agree, adventure games can be tricky.
Okay. So that brings me to probably the final point for this week. And again, like this is we got to think this is from a beginner standpoint. There are probably a lot of folks that listen to this show that are thinking of streaming, that look at what you do each week and think that sounds like a lot of fun. I would love to try it. And so this next point is probably something that a lot of new streamers are going to experience. And this isn't me begging for people to come check out my stream. So with that said, what do you do when you're playing a game and no one's watching, which is kind of half the point of streaming on Twitch, if not most of it, is to have sort of that engagement with folks. So if I'm playing, and that's why I said Life is Strange was probably a mistake, because I didn't have anybody watching. So there was nobody to engage with. Mm-hmm. Therefore, it was just me talking to myself. And how, like, what is the advice that you would give someone if they're playing a game? Like, obviously, if you're playing a game, it's a performance. So even if no one's watching, you still perform, right? Like that's okay.
And that was the hardest thing when I first started streaming. That was the hardest thing for me to kind of learn and get used to, was the talking when no one was there and no one's talking back. And you'll find, like, even I find now when I have like 20, 30, 40, 50 viewers, like sometimes they're just sitting there watching the game, or they have you on in the background. Having you on in the background is something people do all the time. Like they have just Twitch running in the background while they're working or doing whatever. And so you kind of have to get used to the fact that not everyone is always going to chat in your channel. So you have to get really good at explaining what you're doing in the game, talking about why you're making the choices that you're making, giving more information about, you know, where people can find the game. Like, did you get it on Steam? Did you get it like from a third party? Like, what exactly did you do to get your hands on the game? Would you recommend it? Would you not? Point out things like, basically do a Gamers In episode just extended. So say like, okay, oh, well, I'm in the second act of Life is Strange, and I've noticed that the graphics are kind of crappy if I do this really fast, or I don't like the controls, or, you know, this story is dragging on, or, hey, I really liked this part, and just kind of explain what you're thinking and feeling while the game is going on. And that can be a really difficult skill to learn. And sometimes you feel really silly because you're like, I'm literally talking to myself. But the other thing is you're also creating a VOD, right? Because you save the VODs on your channel, right?
Yeah.
Which
so the
is
VOD
also
exists.
a thing I absolutely recommend, is saving the VODs on your channel. Because let's say I come in halfway through episode 2 of Life is Strange, and I'm like, oh, I like this guy. He's kind of cool. He's giving me all this information. He's being really engaging. I like to watch this. I'm going to stop. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to watch episode 1 because I want to see his playthrough from the start. So having VODs is a good way to get people more engaged with your channel and to kind of see your evolution as a streamer. So yeah, I recommend VODs 100%. But yeah, getting used to talking. And that's the thing. If you talk the whole time and if you're engaging with your air quotes audience, you're going to have an audience if you post the VODs. They just might not be there live at that time. So if you think of it that way, where you're actually producing a piece of content, then it kind of puts you in a different mindset. And then you kind of train yourself to talk and emote and explain a lot more.
Okay. No, that is probably the best way to explain it, in that there's a VOD that exists afterwards on Twitch. So, for example, me telling a sob story about playing Life is Strange all by myself, and I know Tana goes in the chat room. I said, no, don't feel bad for me. It was something as an experiment, and you know, it's a learning experience, and the VOD does exist, and for that purpose. And I did my darndest to play the game, but that there are other issues with the game. Anyways, we'll get to that. But the VOD is something that exists for folks that are coming later to your channel. And I think that's probably the best way to sort of help folks who are playing or starting to stream and thinking, what do I do if I don't have anybody watching? Like, how does that work? Do I keep the performance on until someone starts watching? Like, if you're monitoring, but then like every 5 seconds you're looking over to the right and people could see that as well. And
that's the thing too that I would say, especially when you're first starting out, don't worry about viewer numbers. Don't worry about like it's kind of a numbers game in a numbers of hours streamed kind of game. Like, the more hours that you are active and the more streams that you do, the more chances you have to get in front of people's eyeballs. So I wouldn't worry about viewer numbers when you're starting out. Just worry about just being engaging and putting out content, and eventually it will snowball.
And I think I've noticed that, well, honestly, I should know that from just podcasting in general. Like, that's how the Gamers Inn has got to where it is today, like, you know, with 300 episodes. But with streaming, yeah, like I think that even the Twitch achievement system that they've added in there prioritizes streaming content, like hours, like they track it. There's more hours put in front of you in terms of like the milestone for followers is in my mind fairly low in comparison to some of the top Twitch streamers, which is what people mostly compare themselves to. So that's actually really reassuring. So not that I'm going to go back and stream more Life is Strange because, again, other issues, but streaming more, streaming games that fit more into my engagement level, I think is something I'm going to be looking into for sure.
Yeah. Nefroni in the chat room is agreeing and saying finding it interesting when people talk about just their thought processes for making a decision in a game, which again, with Life is Strange,
I tried.
There's less of that, but I mean, there's all kinds of, like, when you're making decisions about like where to go, what quests to do, what crafting to do, like all that kind of stuff is, if you're playing a competitive game, it's even, I think, easier because you can kind of like, you're already talking through, especially if you're playing with someone, but you're already, chances are, going to be able to talk about the gameplay as it's happening live and talking about like where you're going on certain maps or whatever. But in the in-between, which is sometimes the hard part to fill, you can talk about like what character you chose and why and what you're trying to counter, and say like, so if you're streaming Hearthstone, talk about the deck that you're playing, talk about how you play the deck, talk about what you're expecting to see on the ladder or whatever, to kind of fill that void in between when you're actually in and competing in your game. So I think, there's the competitive games, I think, are some of the easier things to stream. But I say that when I say easier, I mean, like, it's easier because it's easier to talk through a lot of that stuff. Because there's just so many things happening all the time. It's much harder to engage with your chat room if you're doing those kind of games, though. So I think it's kind of important to know your audience and know your audience's expectations. Like, are they expecting you to answer every single question, or are they okay with you taking 30 minutes to play the actual game and then catching up with them after? So yeah, and that's kind of once your audience gets a little bigger, that's the kind of things you have to worry about. But yeah, I think there's you're certainly, you've come a long way and you're asking kind of all the right questions. So I'm so proud of you, Ryan.
Well, I hope I just, if anything comes from this, I just hope that folks who are listening to this are taking away some things as well, because I don't want it just to be for my selfish nature. But
well, I mean, like, StreamElements stuff aside, and whether I was a promoter for them or not, just how to start a podcast and how to become a Twitch streamer are probably like the two biggest questions that I ever get asked, is like, basically, like, how do I do what you do? And so, yeah, I mean, I don't mind at all talking about any of this. I hope that you guys are getting a lot out of it too. And you can feel free to email the show or to hit us up on Twitter, whatever. And it doesn't have to be about StreamElements stuff. Obviously, I'm willing to help everybody with that as well. But if you guys just want any kind of tips and tricks for podcasting or streaming in general, then yeah, absolutely. Just hit me up on Twitter and I'll help where I can, for sure. So you mentioned Life is Strange Before the Storm is the game that you decided to stream. How'd that go, Ryan?
Okay.
Outside of the actual streaming experience, how was the actual game?
So just to bring everybody up to speed, Jocelyn played this game when it launched back in August, late August. You got to the point at which I think it must have been in either like a third or a halfway in when you're about to get in the car with Major Dick, whatever his name is. I can't remember.
Chloe's stepdad. I can't remember his name now, but yeah. That's where I stopped.
So the first hour of this game is a mess. It's showcasing some of the worst characteristics of this young, broken 15-year-old who thinks the world is out to get her, because that's evidently, like, she's in a position where there's some pain. It's very raw. Like, her father was taken from her at a young age in a freak car accident, and she blames herself. You learn that in the original game, but in this episode, you're kind of dropped in hot, not knowing a whole lot about the scenario, and she's just being a complete and utter dink to everyone.
She's super mean to everyone. She's like, one of the first things that you have to do to interact with is like basically like lie and scheme your way into a club, and then after you do that, then you steal things, and after you do that, you go buy weed. Like, she's a dick of a character.
She's 15, and honestly, when I was playing that introductory hour, I was thinking to myself, like, what do I do to make sure my kids don't end up this way? I without going further down that dark rabbit hole, knowing what happens to the characters, I'm just it is a scenario that, yes, I do not understand the scenario in terms of I have not lived through that type of trauma. However, it just seems a little over the top. And at the start of the game, and that's why the first hour is rough, because at the start of the game, it seems the only options you're given are to be a dink. And I think some of the options were like, steal the t-shirt, steal the money, buy the weed with the money you stole. You have the option to not do that stuff, but if you don't do it, it feels like you're just beelining it for the objective, which is the complete opposite of what you normally would do in an adventure game, right? You're going to want to engage as much as possible. So,
well, and I think both of those things, interacting with the drug dealer and interacting with the t-shirt salesman, triggered the, like, what is it? It comes up like in the top corner and says like,
it's like they will remember that.
Will remember that or whatever. Yeah. So it feels like it's things that you're supposed to do because it informs the rest of the story at some point or another later on. So it doesn't feel like you're meant to skip it.
Yeah. Well, it's tough. And that's why I'm saying the first hour is kind of rough, because the options to do things feel like you're being put down a path of like, this is the Chloe character, this is what she does. She makes a choice between, stealing a t-shirt and stealing a t-shirt, or stealing the money and not stealing the money. But the money, if she stole it, she can pay for weed. Yeah. But then once you get through that first hour, you start to slowly realize that the decisions that your character, that you can make as your character, aren't necessarily all dink moves or dick moves. I guess I can say dick. I have small children and they will repeat everything I say. Stupid and dumb, favorite words right now. Anyway, it's cute, but anyways. So, but dink is no better. Anyways. Yeah. I'm kind of having these realizations and I'm like, oh God,
what have I done?
Even my censored words are like, again, super cute, but not good. Anyways, so with this game, as you go further, so actually past the point at which you stop playing, because I think you stop preemptively thinking, I'm going to have a word battle with the stepdad, and that's just not going to be fun for me. But that's not actually what happens. You get in the car, he tries to lecture you, and then you fall asleep, and you have a daydream. And it goes on from there. It's a short moment, but it cuts out what you were worried was going to happen. And as you progress through the story, those like word battles they're still options. They're there. If you want to be a bad person, you can go and you can launch into one of those tirades, but you don't have to. You can kind of withhold and try to be an understanding person when you want. Now, the game early on feels like it's thrusting you down a path of Chloe's a bad person. You're going to want to choose, the bitchy response. Mm-hmm. Pardon my use of that word, but that's exactly what is happening. I feel like I can't say that, but anyways, so as you're moving forward in the game, you're given these options where it starts to unravel, like Chloe not being necessarily such a bad person. And the difference between the original Life is Strange and this one is that you got the inner monologue from Max in the first game, mm-hmm. and you didn't get the inner monologue from Chloe, but the inner monologue from Chloe in Before the Storm is actually pretty revealing, because when you choose to lash out at, say, your mother, or lash out at your mother about David, she will have an inner monologue kind of saying like, maybe I was a little rough on her. Maybe I should be more understanding. And then sometimes if you do say a really nice thing, like you try to like make up for it, in her head, she'll be like, that was probably a little too, like she's always second guessing herself, which I think falls in line with that age group. or anybody really.
Yeah,
So
I was like, that's not actually like just teenagers, right?
No, of course not, because I do it all the time. I've done it several times on the show already. But what I'm trying to say is, like, you stopped at a point where the game starts to showcase the good moments. Right after the car ride, and when you get to school, you're going to go pick up a DVD from a friend. And when you go to pick up that DVD, they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, and you have an option to join their game. And I thought, like, oh, this is going to be some piffy dialogue and then I'll move on. But it was actually like a really core component, and you could stick around, and it was a lot of fun. Really cool. But then those moments fade, and then it goes into some other teenagey stuff. And I find it's only when she's interacting with adults does she kind of act that way. When she's around kids, she's just a normal kid. And again, I think that goes to show like what kids actually do. Like when they're around kids their own age, they kind of act normal. And then when they're around adults, they kind of act out. I think that's kind of like how it is.
It sounds like it's the point that they're trying to make, potentially. I guess like my problem, I guess, with and I think it was the potential, I don't even know if I should call it a misstep, but it was the potential problem, I think, with doing a prequel where the main character is a different character than the one that we had. Well, actually, it's probably just a prequel in general problem, but basically it's like, we know where Chloe ends up. We know what Chloe's story looks like. We know what Chloe looks like as a person in the next game. Chloe's a jerk.
She is.
Like, I mean, inner monologue or not doesn't change my feelings for the character, really. Like the fact that, oh, maybe she feels bad or whatever. Like, I don't know. It just, if you make your character super nice as Chloe, it doesn't feed into the next story. Like it would be like a 180 character shift. And if you play your character as a jerk, then you're keeping the story in line, but it's not an enjoyable experience, at least for me. So, right. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
It's tough. Like, I'm not convincing you.
It's just so not for me.
I know. I'm not convincing you to go back and play it. But what I am saying is it's not as bad as originally sort of described. It's not for everyone.
This should totally be like Ryan's generic game review. It's like, it's not that bad.
No. Okay.
I didn't want to like burn my computer afterwards.
Which is technically if you weren't streaming at the time and you could burn it down and you weren't using it, it sounded like that was probably the next step. What I'm saying is it's not as bad as, it's not complete gutter trash. There are things here that can be salvaged, but there are problems with the first episode, specifically with pacing. And when the pacing dips, it usually involves characters being assholes, and that's not fun. That's not fun to experience. That's not fun to be a part of. But as the episode wraps, it showcases why those characters are at least having a bad day. I don't think it necessarily excuses their behavior, but the teaser for episode 2 does kind of lean more into what the game is going to be about in terms of like the mystery and these characters that are introduced. And I'm interested in moving forward and checking out episode 2 to see what it has to offer. But I agree with at least parts of your original, argument for this game, in that there are some serious problems that weren't present in the original. And when you do a prequel or a sequel, you kind of hope for something along the same lines in terms of tone and characters and development. Well, and the fact that you're just thrown into this, like, just this really angsty teenager, it can be super jarring, especially for, people who don't necessarily like to be around angsty teenagers, because there's a lot of them in this game.
And she also doesn't really have a crazy special power, right? Like, isn't her as opposed to Max, where she could actually like manipulate time, which was a cool, fun mechanic to play around with. Chloe's just a bitch. That's her superpower. Like, it's not nearly as interesting and dynamic, I feel like, as Max's power was, and that made the first game interesting. So
it was like battles, but less creative in this one.
Yeah.
And did it twice. I did it at the beginning when you don't have an option, and I did it again a second time at the school, or maybe I did it. I can only remember twice. Maybe there was a third time, but the second time I remember because there was a bully picking on someone else, and you had an opportunity to use your power of evil for good. You know, you could be a bitch to somebody else who was doing technically something really bad.
Worse,
like he was bullying someone, and you could talk him away. Now, when you line it up, it's like, okay, a 15-year-old girl sort of talking a football player down, like you make fun of him enough that he walks away. He could have just sucker punched the kid and then walked away. No, he just chooses, like, you used words. You're lucky these two girls saved you. I'm walking away now. And it's like, how that would work in real life. Like he probably would have at least got a shot in, or like maybe like a Charlie horse or something, but I don't know. Anyways, I will continue. I've committed to playing the game. I'll play it because that's just how I roll.
Because that's what you do.
I do. Yeah. So episode 2, I don't think I'm going to stream it because, again, it's just so, unless it's a chill stream, like I said, but it's just so laid back. It's kind of slow in parts. And so I will play episode 2 for next week. Hopefully it continues down that path of being interesting, because the teaser did set it up for some interesting character development, and I'm hoping, as a prequel, you would hope that it ties in directly to Life is Strange. So I am curious to see how it leads into that game in terms of Rachel and Chloe, because
Rachel is the part of that game that I think was interesting, and the time leading up to her abduction, like I'm interested to know like how much they actually allude, because obviously we know who the bad guy is from the first game. We know what happened to Rachel. It would be interesting to see kind of the lead up to that, because I think it does lead right into, or it's supposed to, but
not sure. Yeah. But if you kind of follow the signs, and this is why, like, we never really heard much feedback from our listeners as to whether maybe we're the only two playing this game within the Gamers In community, because we never really got a lot of feedback. I know the game.
Well, I trashed it pretty hard, so anyone who was thinking about it might have decided not to.
I mean, I remember Breath of the Wild. We got some feedback. So, I think that they're, knowing what happens in the original game and what that means for Chloe as a character, like, she's already in this game. You're seeing her dealing with Max abandoning her. You can imagine, no matter what kind of progress you make in these 3 episodes, Rachel leaves at the end and she feels abandoned. And that could explain just basically any reset that happens in terms of good behavior. Yeah. So but some would argue you shouldn't have to explain that stuff away. Like, you should just be able to figure it out from a design standpoint to kind of have it work. So I think they could have toned her down a little bit. And I agree with you there, like, just a little bit.
Very, very quickly, I'm going to talk a little bit about Sea of Thieves, because that's basically what I've been playing this week. The closed beta was available for people who had been in the technical alpha and people who have pre-ordered the game. And it was a lot of fun. We played, I want to say I streamed it 3 or 4 times. Mostly Civ and I played together just on the 2-man ship, which was really interesting. But last night we got a chance with a couple of our raid members to actually try the 4-man ship. Man, that's hard to sail. Super fun though. Like, it's the big, like, 3-sail galleon, and it's ginormous. It goes so fast. We actually got into a naval battle with another one, and I couldn't believe, because the ship is so big, it's so much easier to hit with cannonballs. So, I mean, the damage we were taking and all the repairing I had to do, like, the ship filled up with the water so fast because you get like 6 holes at once. But with a 4-man crew, it's supposed to, basically, you're supposed to get the same, I guess, level of work or, things available to you to do on the 4-man as you do on the 2-man. So yeah, it was fun and it was interesting. But yeah, the 4-man ship was actually, I thought, a lot harder than the 2-man ship. I still wouldn't want to play by myself, I don't think. It would be very, very difficult to kind of control a vessel all by yourself, because you have to do all of the steering, all of the sails, all of the repairs, the navigation, just everything. I think it just be really tricky as a one-man boat, but still a lot of fun. There's also a lot of features in Sea of Thieves that weren't actually available in the beta. So there's different factions that you can grind up your levels with, and different voyages and everything else. So the beta seemed a little bit small, and by the time I'd gotten to by the time I'd finished streaming, like I said, we streamed 3 or 4 times and probably put 10 or 15 hours in. It was a little bit like I was starting to like recognize the islands, and I kind of knew the world, which made it feel a little bit small. But again, it's only kind of a fraction of what's going to be available on launch. The combat's really satisfying. Playing with your friends was awesome. Excuse me, but Civ actually went and played randomly with a crew, a 4-man crew with 3 random people, and the voice chat in the game is it works really, really well. There's also a wheel of conversation text options that you can use if you don't want to use your voice. So he found communication was actually great, and I guess he found a really good group. There were some really fun accidents, I guess we can call them. There was one point the other night where we were sailing around on our 2-man ship, and we found a 4-man ship that was kind of chasing us, and we were fighting with another 2-man ship, and then there was another 2-man ship that came out of nowhere, and voice comms are actually open, so you can talk to anyone in the open world. So,
even allies and enemies, right?
Allies and enemies alike.
Wow.
Yeah. So Civ was actually talking to one of the newcomer 2-man ship, basically, but I didn't have my voice comm set up. I had just muted everything because I assumed people would be evil and toxic and internet worthy. So I had everything shut off, as I normally do. That's the first thing I do when I go into multiplayer games, is I shut down all that stuff off and I play in my nice little bubble. But I guess so I was talking all piratey and Civ was talking all piratey, which is also one of the best parts of this game, is you can use pirate voices and nobody thinks you're weird. So we were talking in our pirate voices, and the newcomer ship, I guess once they got close enough to hear our comms, was like, "Yar, mateys, we be wanting no trouble. We have no quarrel with you." And it was awesome. And then, except I couldn't hear them. So the other 2-man ship we'd been fighting with sank. I was trying to run away from the 4-man ship, and I literally crashed our ship right into the ones that weren't supposed to, that we weren't supposed to fight with. But Civ was dead, so he couldn't tell them that I hadn't meant to do it. So then they shot me down and they sank my ship.
So that's, I think
it's so fun.
I was going to say, like, that seems like the crux of the game, is that it's setting up these moments where you can have a conversation with folks and then accidentally have a moment where you crash into someone. And this is just the beta. I know it's a taste of what's going to be in the full game. There have been references to other things that happen in the game that possibly will make for moments like that, fun types of interesting storytelling.
Yeah.
So I feel like even if you were to play the game once a week, you'd have a unique story coming out of it. It's similar to PUBG, I think, in that if PUBG was this open dynamic world that was constantly changing, you would have a new story to tell, outside of I went to the school and I got shot, That sounds terrible.
That sounds so bad.
But when you think about PUBG, I could only remember there's a school.
Yeah, if you haven't played PUBG, then the school is usually stocked with weapons, and it's a very good. Yeah, Pachinki's a good one too. But
Pachinki machine, you go in, and anyways, I'm looking forward to, like as we said last week, I'm looking forward to trying Sea of Thieves because I love Rare. I'm not one of those folks to play like a multiplayer only experience type thing, but I know it's like right up your alley, and I'm glad you're enjoying it because pirates. Yeah, I mean, what's not to love?
And like I said originally, I think that there's a lot of room that they can expand. They've built this amazing base game that's just so beautiful, and there are so many things that you can do with the world of just pirates in general and the Caribbean, and all of the stuff that happened over the course of that period of history. I think that there's a lot to play with there, and especially where they've got sort of a supernatural element to it as well, because there are like skeletons that pop up and attack you. It's very interesting, I think, and has a lot of potential. So like I said, Civ and I are actually going to be doing a Gamers In Presents Sea of Thieves podcast, kind of from soon-ish until the launch of the game, just to kind of gauge interest to see if you guys are wanting to hear more from us on that topic. So this is probably going to be the last time I talk about Sea of Thieves on Gamers In, except for I'll probably mention again on launch. But yeah, I loved it. It was super fun. It's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. And Swexus was playing with us last night. He's in the chat room right now. He says shooting yourself out of the cannon is the best. You can shoot yourself out of a cannon. It's pretty great. Yes. So you can try to board enemy ships by shooting yourself out of a cannon, or you can try to avoid all the sharks in the water by shooting yourself from your ship onto the islands to go and explore and find treasures. So I feel like this game has just enough for me to drive a sandboxy kind of a world. Like the voyages are enough for me. Like it's in Minecraft, it's too self-directed, but in Sea of Thieves, like you can go get voyages. It tells you where to go. It gives you treasure maps. It gives you riddles to solve, which as we progressed in our level, the riddles got really, really difficult. And the map sent us to bigger and bigger islands that were harder and harder to pin down where exactly the chests were. So the degree of difficulty definitely increases as you go, which I thought was really interesting. And it's not necessarily telling you a traditional like story, but it's enough to drive your experience in the world and give you something to do. And when you get tired of doing things like solving riddles or going to find treasure chests, you just go to have naval battles, which are super fun and satisfying. So it's the overall very, very fun experience. I highly recommend it. If you guys haven't picked it up already, then like I said, I highly recommend it. I would. And if you want more information, check out Gamers In Presents Sea of Thieves. And finally, if you are thinking of getting the game, make sure that you let me know. You can add me on Xbox. I believe on Xbox, I'm Joss Plays. So because I was GIS Gamer, but now I'm not anymore. Oh, right. PlayStation. I'm still GIS Gamer on PlayStation because they won't let you change it. But Xbox did let me change it. So I've switched over to Joss Plays. So if you guys want to add me on Xbox, please do that. Because that's the friends list that it pulls from is Xbox. And make sure you actually send me a friend request because I found yesterday that I couldn't. Some people were following me, but not actually on my friends list. So I couldn't find them when I was trying to add people to the game. So just make sure that you go and send me friend requests and then we can play some Sea of Thieves because it is more fun with friends. 100%. Oh, yeah. So make sure you guys check that out. So we have a patron ad this week from Weekly News Desk. Simon says, Weekly News Desk is a podcast all about the geek news this week. You can join your two knucklehead hosts, Andrew and Simon, as they keep you informed on movies, TV, video games, and books. You can find them on iTunes or at weeklynews.com. And if you'd like to sponsor an episode of The Gamers In, you can head on over to patreon.com/thegamersin and choose the appropriate backer level. You can also join our Discord at bit.ly/TGI Discord to take advantage of all of the patron perks, including the patron only access to the voice channels and text channels. You guys can vote on game night, when will it be in February? Game night will be the 15th of February. So sure. Make sure you guys are prepped to get in on that. I'm not sure what we'll be playing, but it will be fun and it will be voted on by you. So again, that's patreon.com/thegamersin. Ryan, did you want to give people a quick rundown of the Patreon mini episodes that you've been doing?
Yeah, so sort of related to our spin-off stuff. So the first one was kind of this Patreon mini. Each week, basically each Sunday, I text Jocelyn, hey, what are you thinking about playing this week? Put it all into a doc.
Oh my God, I don't know. I'm prepping for Raid.
Yeah, it's Sunday, Ryan, and it's 9:00 and I'm having dinner. What are you doing? I'm falling asleep. So it's a short show, 2 to 3 minutes. Sometimes if there's like some news or a game I'm playing that we're not going to talk about on the show, I will kind of go in depth there. But normally they're about less than 5 minutes talking about what we're going to talk about on the show, games played, news, stuff like that. It just gives you a preview of what's happening. Upcoming events, maybe new spin-off podcasts, stuff like that. So the Patreon mini is available to all on patreon.com/thegamersin. But if you are a patron, you get access to it a day early. So you'll get it Sunday as soon as it's posted. And there's an audio RSS feed for patrons. So even if you subscribe at the $1 or below level, you have that RSS feed and it just shows up in your catcher. Otherwise, just go to patreon.com and you can listen to them the next day.
Perfect. That brings us to our topic of the week this week, where we are talking about Battle for Azeroth. The pre-orders are open. If you guys are unaware, this is the next expansion for World of Warcraft. It's coming this year on or before September 21st. So basically, we're looking at a summer release window. But yeah, the pre-order is actually available now. So if you pre-order, then you get access to a 110 level character boost, as well as also getting access to the allied races. So Ryan, is this enough to bring you back to World of Warcraft?
So here's the thing. As we've always described with World of Warcraft, it holds a special place in my gaming heart as the first MMO I started playing. I remember watching the trailer for World of Warcraft in high school, like the year I graduated. And then college was a big time for World of Warcraft. So of course I'm coming back. Look at the box art. It looks like Warcraft, like Warcraft works in humans. And that to me was almost like, I do still care that it's now like $100 Canadian. I know it was always $100 Canadian because it was in US, but
I feel like, so I had that same sticker shock. I actually haven't pre-ordered Battle for Azeroth yet. Basically, in the last year, what Blizzard has done is localize their currencies, which I am not a fan of. I prefer to just buy things in US dollars because then I can do things like watch the exchange rate and figure out when it's best for me. Plus, I get paid in US dollars, so then I don't have to worry about exchange rates. But yeah, now they have localized currencies. And the thing is, we've had this discussion a billion times over on the Hearthstone subreddit, but basically, Blizzard says this is what it costs you for something in your local currency. They tend to raise prices when currency is in their favor, and they don't tend to lower prices when currency goes back in your favor as a consumer. So I am not a fan of this. I'm also not a huge fan, even though I play a ton of World of Warcraft. Having an expansion for a game costs $65 because that's the base model, basically. So you can get the base expansion for $65, or you get the digital deluxe for $90. It's an expansion, and I understand that it is even though it's an expansion, it's basically the same as a AAA title. But even then, I'm planning on paying 70-ish maybe for a 70 or 80 for a digital collector's edition for a AAA title. That's about what I've been paying. Usually I pay, $50 or $60 Canadian for just base editions of games. So I don't know. This seems really, really expensive to me.
It is, especially when you tack on the monthly subscriber fee.
A monthly subscription, which is also localized and not getting any cheaper. It cost me I can't remember off the top of my head now, but it was costing me between $15 and $16 a month, for my subscription when it was being converted over from US dollars. I think the highest I ever saw it was around 17, and now it's costing me at least 20, but I want to even say it's $21.99 or something. It's a crazy amount of money that I'm spending on World of Warcraft now because of this currency localization choice.
I don't think I can justify the digital deluxe, even though a lot of the stuff they're offering looks really cool.
Well, and see, this is the thing. I feel like I know I don't have to get it, but the card back in Hearthstone is awesome. The mounts that you get, I actually prefer the Alliance mount to the Horde mount. Alliance is getting, I think, the coolest race when it comes to allied races, and now they're getting the cool mount out of the two. I don't know. I've been for the Horde my entire Warcraft life, but I also think that the Alliance is cool. Not on the... Yeah, the Raptor looks kind of okay, but the Battle Horse just looks so much better, and there's so much more cooler details to it. It's in battle plate armor with flags hanging off it and stuff. It looks so cool. I guess the Raptor has feathers on it or something, but I don't know. The Raptor looks a little plain next to, I think, the Alliance Battle Horse.
Right. It costs... so the difference between the digital deluxe and the standard edition, I'm going to do this for everybody, this math, so that because you're not going to do it because you want to buy it. Yeah. So I'm going to do it for you. And I'm stalling because I'm trying to figure out what 87 minus 63 is. You're probably looking at, 7, 10. It's late. It's $20. It's $25. I should have done it the other way where you add it. It's $25. everybody. Is that, let that sink in. Actually, that's not too bad, actually, now that you think about it. Because it's a pet, and they sell pets for like $20, don't they? So it's kind of a steal.
Pets, I think, are like 15 and mounts are 25-ish, maybe.
Oh, well, there you go. You're getting like, yeah. I mean, Blizzard stuff is way overpriced. It's super
considering
overpriced.
That they are digital goods and there's no like supply necessarily. It's just based purely on demand, but enough people are buying these things because, you know, they're still selling Blizzard. Them at these prices. If no one was buying them, they would have to lower prices. So yeah, anyways. But yeah, mounts are 25 because I think they're $12.50 when they go on sale, which is usually what I buy them for. I wait. They usually have once or twice a year. They'll have a sale where the older mounts will go on sale for 50% off, and as well as the older pets. And so that's what I wait for. But yeah, I think it's 15 and 25.
So yeah, I can't justify the digital deluxe. I used to get it all the time, just because I like the extra goodies, because I love playing Blizzard games, and it was nice to have a bunch of new stuff to experience. But you know, the pet and the mounts in World of Warcraft do look cool, and I do like the look of the Heroes of the Storm stuff, and those are the games that I would play. Right. And you know, having the pendant in Overwatch is really cool too, but it's not a deal breaker for me with that game. But you know, for an extra $20 or $10, you can go buy the physical collector's edition and get like an art book, which those art books honestly are worth $40 because they are hardcover and 200 pages or 100 and some pages. So, but anyways, enough about the price. It's on or before September 21st, so they can say technically summer 2018. So your spring date. No go, right? Yeah. Which, I mean, obviously that was a little bit ahead of the curve probably, but still, I think the pacing of this feels great. I don't feel like we're going to have some big, like, we still haven't finished the final raid content. We haven't downed Heroic Argus yet. So our raid team raids twice a week for, 5 hours in a week, and we haven't finished the current content in terms of raiding. There's still so much to do. They're doing a pre-expansion event, which is happening soon-ish. We've already got the changes happening to one of the zones with 7.3.5. We got the changes to leveling, and kind of the new PvP battleground is coming soon. So it feels like the pacing of content has really picked up, and it's great because, I think that a September release, like I might just be starting to be done with everything. And especially since they released some of the allied races, not all the allied races are available yet. So because they've released some of the allied races now, once I run out of actual WoW content to play, I still have leveling to do. And because they made the leveling changes, it's something I'm really looking forward to, because I'm going to get to experience zones that I maybe haven't already. And I can do that by leveling up an allied race. So it's almost like they're giving us a little bit of time to do that as well. So because there's so much content available, I think they've actually done a much better job this time. We didn't have the big dead zone like we did in World of Draenor, Warlords of Draenor. That was brutal. So yeah, and I still think there's a, from a standpoint of like casual players like myself, I still think there's still a bit too much of a gap, but I'm glad that it's not as much as it was with Warlords of Draenor, because I certainly felt that, and it was almost a shock to come back that much later. But this, like, September for me is a weird time, because September is when all of the games start coming out again, so it'll be interesting to see what you're rubbing up against in late September release windows. So
well, I feel like September 21st, like, even though I guess the spring prediction was wrong, although I was right that pre-orders were available before the next Hearthstone expansion, which everyone told me I was nuts, and I was like, no, they're going to be available because that's why the card back is in the game.
Blizzard likes money.
I was right about that. You were. So I think that the September 21st date, I would bet money that that's not actually going to be their release date. I think that they're just saying September 21st as like we might, because they didn't actually announce like this is going to be our release date. It's on or before, right? So the before part, I think, is kind of key. And I think we might still get it before September. I think that it's just kind of Blizzard has a tendency to do this. They say, we're going to release around March or April. or we're going to release, this time or before this time. And very rarely do those actually turn out to be the actual release dates. So I feel like they're giving themselves some wiggle room, like if they run into unforeseen problems. But like all of the Battle for, or not all of the Battle for Azeroth stuff, but there is Battle for Azeroth stuff being data mined because it's already up on the PTR. Alpha invites have already gone out. So people are already playing Battle for Azeroth. So I can't imagine them waiting another 9 months to release this content. I still think we're going to get it sooner.
Well, yeah,
they're giving themselves some leeway. Exactly. Thanks, Deborah.
I think so. Yeah. Well, speaking of September, breaking news. We don't have to discuss it because I know one of us has to leave, aka me. So I'm doing this to myself, folks. Nintendo just tweeted like 3 things that are kind of major big deals. We talked about pre-show. Nintendo Switch Online is coming September 2018. That's their, $20 a year virtual console S type subscription service where you get to keep the games now when you're in active subscription. Then they announced Mario Kart Tour, their next smart device game coming before March 2019. That's a large window. Hopefully we don't have to wait that long. And also they're making a Mario movie and they're partnering with the Minions company, Illumination.
Wow.
So that's, and it's supposed to be co-produced by Shigeru Miyamoto and whoever Chris Meledandri. I'm assuming Chris Meledandri is an Illumination person, so maybe he's the creator of Minions. So that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
So there you go, folks. Mario movie. It's a thing that's going to happen again. Animated, of course. So
obviously.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, I guess like we've had air quotes talking Marios before. In that, like, they do the same thing really as, I guess Link doesn't really talk, but like it's the text on the screen that we usually get. It's going to be interesting seeing those characters actually be voice acted, because other than like just it's me, like those like 2 or 3 word Mario emotes, there's not really I don't know. Hearing him talk in full big sentences, I feel like is going to be a little bit weird for me.
I don't think they'll do it. I think he will remain the weird, only says 5 words, and there'll be other stand-in characters. Like if you play, I remember Mario plus Rabbids, him being sort of the mute or near mute in relation to all the other characters that we're talking. It worked quite well, or at least it wasn't a problem. But yeah. I mean, if you've seen the Minions movies or any of the Despicable Me's, like, I hope Mario just doesn't become the Minions where he's reduced to a couple of lines and he's a joke. But it'll be interesting to see. I think it's a whiles off. The fact that they've announced this kind of goes to show that maybe more of the rumors of Nintendo partnering with different companies is more true than not, because this rumor has been out there for a while. They've just confirmed it today. So it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we will talk more about it next week when we have some more details coming out of the Nintendo camp. I look forward to it. In the meantime, you can visit us on the web at gamersinpodcast.com. As I mentioned off the top of the show, we will no longer be on AMove TV. You can now find us Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/thegamersin. So make sure you guys all go to the Gamersin channel and follow it so that you don't miss the notification when we go live. You can also follow us on Twitter. You can find me, Jocelyn, at Joss Plays. Ryan is at R. Murphy, and don't forget to follow the show at The Gamers Inn. The video versions of all our episodes will be live streamed on twitch.tv/thegamersin. If you'd like to email the show and let us know about your first streaming experiences, or maybe what you thought of the Sea of Thieves beta, please do so at info@gamersinpodcast.com. Thanks for staying at The Gamers Inn. Remember, tune in next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.